Hey there, Wargamers. Austin here with Death Designs, and today I'm going to be painting some stuff, and I figured we'd just turn the cameras on and talk about the processes that I'm using and the projects that we're working on right now for some upcoming products. The one that I have done already here is a large garage door that we've painted up in blue and yellow hazard stripes. It was black and yellow hazard stripes with a blue frame on it. And it's a really simple color scheme. There's not necessarily a whole lot going on as far as super difficult techniques, but they're cleanly executed, and we did some nice weathering on it, and I think it looks pretty good. But we have 3 other doors here that we still want to do for photography, and I want to do a couple of different things. I don't want them all to be big blue doors with hazard stripes all over them. I'm thinking that we'll probably do something a little bit more medical, maybe like an EMT bay kind of loading dock affair, maybe something else that is, I don't know, just some kind of numbered door, and then maybe another one that's a little bit more run down, maybe has some graffiti on it. I started sketching out some things on the stuff I've got on the desk here. Let's just get started. Today is going to be kind of an informal thing. This isn't necessarily a tutorial, but I'll talk about what I'm doing, and I just figured you guys might be interested in seeing some of this stuff. You may also be asking, what are these door plates for? And this is for a new set that's coming out. You'll see more about it later, but essentially these use a lot of the same attachment mechanics that our deadbolt and our bolt hole and warp strider sets use to attach the walls to the columns and to the doors and all that good stuff. So we're just expanding on not necessarily those kits specifically, but using that connection system to add more interesting things that you can attach those walls and other items to. So these will be big plates that'll go on the sides of buildings, but for now, just think of them as big doors. So let's start off maybe with our door. What was our red and white one for? I knew we were going to do a red stripe right down the middle and then have a number in the thing.
I think we just want to use red and white. And
that's fair. Okay.
It look good based on the rest of the terrain you've got.
I guess we don't really have an exact use for that one, but I'm thinking that you know, if we have like a big red stripe down the middle with white on either side and a white circle in the middle with maybe a black number in the center. Red, white, black is a great color trio, very high contrast, very powerful looking. A lot of big brand names use that, everything from Coke to, and now my brain goes blank. I don't know. What else?
Makes me think
Help me,
of
Justin.
Snickers bar.
Snickers
brown,
bar?
But the Snickers logo is red and white.
But it's got blue in the middle, doesn't it?
Does it?
I think the middle of those letters are blue. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, just keep your eyes peeled, and there's a ton of companies whose logos are red, white, and black. So anyway, let's get started on that. And I think that what we're going to probably end up doing is do our red first, so that we can mask it off. And then we'll do white on the sides, and then we'll do a stencil to do the white ring in the middle, and then we'll do like one of the stencils from the Mecha stencil set that we make right in the middle. I don't know what number should it be. I've always been partial to 7, but
yeah, I'll say 7. We'll say
cool.
7.
All right.
There's plenty of things you could do with the terrain with your minis or games or setups that the 7 could represent. And since with this you're kind of creating your own city, your own narrative, your own universe, maybe that 7 corresponds with a faction or a group, or you know.
Maybe it's an objective number. Maybe the door is right there where you've got to go break in and steal the intel or steal some whatever, make some things fall off the back of a truck. All right. So I think that we probably ought to lay some white down first, just to get us started here. I'm just using Sinalres white because it's what I got on hand right now. It's also a decent airbrush white.
I think as you're going through this, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that because you're painting essentially 4 of the same door, challenge yourself to paint 4 different ones is really
right.
cool. You're going to get to use a variety of techniques, and when it comes to kind of outfitting your city with these doors, it's going to look really interesting and unique while they have the same, what's the word? Shapes. The math class with shapes.
Geometry?
Yes, I was trying to say geology, which we know that I don't know that. It's got the same geometry for each one, but just by changing the color, you start to get a different feel, which I think is pretty cool.
So I'm thinking that I'm probably, like I was just going to do kind of my transition, my pre-highlight here, but I think that I might as well go ahead and lay down white on the sides because we're going to have white on the sides anyway.
Seems fair enough.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and do, wait, actually, we're going to have to mask it anyway, so never mind. That's not, well, I've still got plenty of white in here, so let's just do it. We're going to put some white down, so at least use up the paint that we got. Yeah.
Using, with stuff like this, since you have 3 of the same one on, if you're trying to be efficient, you might find something that needs to be white on the other ones.
Right, exactly. But because I'm kind of trying to think one at a time, and I want them to really be different. I don't want to accidentally start making them look too similar. So I'm just going to go one at a time here and really think about each one individually in its own time. And that's not to say that I want to spend a ton of time on any given one of these, but my brain isn't organized enough to have 3 separate designs going at the same time when it comes to color schemes. I mean, I generally know what it is that I'm going to be doing, but I'll make mistakes if I try to make that all efficient where I know exactly what the best order to lay down the colors in so I can multitask between them. What do we want? I'm gonna go with Scorching Red.
Yeah, I like that too. I like
super bright.
I use Angelic Blood a lot and Nebula Red, but I'm thinking if we do something that's more on the brighter side of the red spectrum, it might show up really well with your terrain.
Yeah, I think plus if we go with a really bright one, we can still darken it down a little bit. I left a lot of like black and gray here, so hopefully that'll still give us a nice like burgundy color at the bottom.
Yeah, I think this is a good choice. It's almost borderline orange.
Yeah.
It's got that nice, I don't say cartoony, but with the style of terrain you're currently doing, this is
yeah,
really
I mean like for this stuff, it's like we got such a bright blue around the edge and we got these like neon yellow lights and stuff, and then, you know, we've got our big bright hazard stripes. It's gonna, I think it'll all go together in the sense that it's all very bright and kind of cartoonish. I think I like what we got going on here, but I do think that maybe we need to deepen this a little bit down here. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit. Yeah. I don't want to make it so dark that we can't do weathering on it later, but I think it's like I'd rather have it a little bit more saturated so we're not seeing the black grain coming through.
Yeah, one of the things that might end up looking good is similar to what you did on the hazard stripe door there. Having a little bit of brown at the bottom across the whole thing is probably going to help darken it up too.
Yeah.
Assuming that was a ghost tint or something you did.
What, on this? Yeah. It was, I think, saddle brown and then some ghost tint when I used the organic stencil on it. But I started rolling around. I'm starting to feel like this is like a really weird format that we're doing where it's like, it's the most analog version of like a Twitch stream where it's like, oh, my Discord audience is actually in the room with me, which is one person.
Man, we've just made me, not me, and me as us. I'm plural now.
Yeah. Well, you know, Adam will probably burst through the door at some point in a little bit. What do we got?
Your son, as the people from the internet know him.
Yeah. All right, what do we got? We got dark leather. I think that's probably a good transition color. And that's a new one. Gotta pop the cap. All right. Crackle, crackle. This is like, that's a little more, I don't know.
Does it look red to you? Or is
it looks red to me, but it's not as dark as I remember it being. But that's okay. Let's put some down. If we don't like it, we'll cover it back up with something else. Actually, I think that's looking pretty good. Like it's almost got like a slight purpley tone to me, yeah. But I don't dislike it. Yeah. Let's see. Let's look at it right side up. I think we might actually need to come back in and brighten it up a little bit more again, just because I I think I may have gone a little over the top with that. So
I
let's
think,
dump out the
I don't
rest.
think you actually sprayed as much as you did. I think that where you're seeing the brightness was where the white was, and you were
A little more conservative with the,
you're
okay.
very conservative with the white at the top. I think that's just what you're seeing.
Okay, so let's come back in here and throw a little more highlighting over top of this. Okay, yeah, I'm digging that more. Cool. So let's see, what are we doing next? I guess it's time to make sure this is super duper dry with our Big Bird hair dryer. It's good enough.
Every time I see you with the hairdryer, my brain goes to, maybe it's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I might have done that in the wrong order. I don't know how the commercial actually goes.
I think that's it. I think you did it.
Close enough.
Okay. So let's try to mask this down. All right, so I'm gonna try to like get my masking right on. Actually, let's go to the outside of this so that where we've got essentially our zigzag shape here, I want to have it cut off here and here just so that you get that nice like kind of 3D effect with it, and that might be hard to see on the other camera, but you'll see what we're doing. So yeah, Justin's gonna come to the rescue and zoom in a little bit for us here. Gotta stick the tongue out to make it work right.
So,
all right.
For the viewers at home, or
nope, did I mess that up? Okay, yeah.
So watching you mask here, one of the things I struggle with sometimes is getting too excited to do the masking and then ended up screwing it up and peeling off the paint. So
sure, we
may have addressed this before, but you want to walk people through your precautions for making sure you don't ruin your awesome paint job.
Sure. Well, one thing is make sure that you get a decent brand of masking tape. I mean, you don't have to get anything super fancy, but also don't go for the green frog or the blue tape stuff. I feel like that stuff doesn't have enough tack, but also your standard painter's tape has a little too much, which is why you may have seen me do it a second ago, but I did it kind of off screen. But I like to stick it to whatever it is that I'm wearing so it pulls off a little bit of lint and then ends up being a little less tacky. It hits that medium mid ground where it's actually working. Also, if I've just put paint down and then I'm about to mask immediately, I will at least hit it with the hairdryer for a little bit because it may look dry on the surface, but I like to make damn sure that it is completely dry before I do that. Now, some people might say, oh, well, then you need to leave it for some amount of time, like, you know, an hour or something. But honestly, as long as you're not like really taking a tool and just like burnishing the heck out of it, you're probably not going to be picking up paint. Just also with airbrushes, you have a little bit of an easier time with it just because as you're putting paint out, you're also, as you would imagine, putting out air, which is helping to dry it as you paint. So doing thin layers, you end up drying the first layer as you're putting the second layer down, sort of, if you're doing it nice and slow. So drying them in thin little layers is really helpful. It also means that you can mask faster. If you're painting by hand and then you're gonna mask, I would be very careful, especially if you're thinning your paints a lot. That just means that your paint is going to take longer to dry.
One of the nice benefits with the terrain you're working on here as well is if by some chance you guys, when this terrain kit comes out, or if you're working on any other stuff with masking tape, if you peel up some paint by mistake, and it is something like this, you know, don't fret. Use that as a place to do some weathering. You know, it's a good chip effect.
Or put a decal over it, or use a stencil and cover it up with something. Or we've been shipping out, I think, a lot of the little in-city poster things with a lot of our packages recently. So some of you may already have some of those. Or actually on the 12 days video, you can go and download it and just print it off yourself. So I like to keep some on hand just in case and patch over areas that you might have messed something up on.
As Bob Ross would say, you know, we don't make mistakes, we have happy little accidents.
You know what? I think would be kind of cool, since we've already got masking down here, we could create the illusion of a little bit of a shadow here by just putting some masking on the other side of, like, how close are we in right now? Can I show them?
If you're on the...
I'm talking like close up, like...
That's fine, yes.
Okay, so you can see like we've got our line, it zigs out and then down and then back in, and we're masked on the far side of it, basically where that line changes again. So we're gonna like isolate this diagonal here. And I know that Justin's probably just like frothing at the mouth like, it looks like a hazard stripe now. Hazard stripe it.
Anybody in YouTube, Twitch land that knows me knows I like my hazard stripes.
Yeah, you do, buddy. Okay.
They look nice.
They do look nice. When done correctly and cleanly, they are a very nice little thing that you can add to your terrain.
We can't tease me not to do hazard stripes, so I'm going to go home very soon.
Oh, I'm not doing hazard stripes. That was a great burp, by the way. Okay.
So you've done this kind of a pinch to right masking sort of looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is the area that you have cut off here, is it still going to be red or is it going to be blacked out?
This, I'm thinking that we just do a color shift on it. Like we could use a ghost tint to make it a little darker brown, or we could brighten it up. Like, I think that it could be an interesting optical illusion that you could create there, really simply with some masking here, that you could make it look like the door kind of actually kicks out a little bit, or in, depending on whether you put shadows or highlights or whatever.
Okay.
And I think that is a cool little thing, and you know, somebody might actually paint a door that way so that it has an interesting kind of illusion. I got that all masked off now, and I'm gonna, just for safety's sake, actually, it doesn't really matter, we're gonna wipe that stuff out anyway. Yeah, we don't have to care about that. Do you think highlights on the sides, maybe? Or should we go darker?
Which side specifically?
Like, in this area here, like, so we're essentially isolating all of the well, that's tooth pattern. Okay, so we're isolating the diagonal, so from like there to there. So if you wanted to make it look like it's coming out a little bit, maybe we just highlight it a little bit more.
I think if you're going to be doing something that's going to push a shadow, I think you're going to get the better shadow if you also have highlight. If that's what you're doing with that. You talking about in the pinstripe area?
In this area right here, yeah. So maybe we go brighter than what it is at the top and even darker at the bottom. Do you think that would work, or do you think that we should just shift it one way or the other?
Are you trying to push it
forward?
Okay, so forward. So maybe your highlight is more towards the center of the door versus the top, because you're wanting that to be forward and differentiate from what you've done at the top.
That's fair. So in that case, you know what?
We'll at least get a cool looking stripe.
Yeah, that's true. I got this Citadel Air White Scars White thing.
Is that a new pickup?
Huh?
Is that a new one you got? Because you normally use, ceramite white?
Yeah, I picked it up at some point, and then when I was cleaning up the paint cart earlier, I found it. So, yay for cleanliness. Ooh, that does not sound friendly. Let's bring that back up some. There we go, that's better. Okay, so, oh, and we've taped it to the table. Good job. All right, so let's add a little bit more white here. I'm gonna bring that down a little bit. And we're planning on coming back over this with more red, but I just wanna lighten it up a little bit before we do that. Okay. I think we're at a reasonable place there. Let me make sure I close that pot. GW pots always like to just, you know, jump over.
One day we'll get our dropper bottles from GW. One day.
One day. Because I love their base paints. They make great base paints. It's just the pots are kind of garbage.
Yeah, I like Citadel paints in general. I've never had a major issue, but I mean,
their washes are great. I mean, they're so accessible. You know, like, because we always end up doing a lot of like big major paint jobs and stuff. It's like you want to have a consistent amount of, or a consistent set of paints that you can get your hands on anytime. Just, you know, going to the store as opposed to having to order it and wait. And their washes are really very good, and when you consider that they are also very available.
Yeah, that's the one of the few things that they offer that I don't mind, that the type of bottle, because you got to wash out of a dropper for me is not something it doesn't really benefit me.
Yeah.
All the other paints and droppers are really nice.
Okay, so let's see what we got here. Okay, so you see what I'm talking? Oh, yeah, we pulled some paint off because I didn't do it on the big one. I didn't tack it off. So yeah, it happens. All right. So now I guess once this is dry, we can mask this off fully and then start doing the white on the sides. So let me get the big bird out again. So I guess realistically, in the end, we didn't have to do that outside layer of masking because we're about to just mask the whole thing off now.
Well, one thing, philosophy I live by when it comes to painting minis, if you can mask it, I usually mask it. So
fair.
Better to over mask it than under mask it, and that's start.
All right, I've sufficiently detacked it now. So let's cover up all this stuff again. Okay, let's just press this into this corner.
One of the nice things with the masking tape, and particularly with this style of terrain, is that if you found that you really needed to mask off specific details, because they're etched in, you can really kind of see through the masking tape to see where you would want to actually cut pieces out, which is nice. Which is not what you're doing here, but if you really want to isolate one of these little panels, it's really easy to do.
You could do that. I would say if you're really looking to do that, the material that I would like 100% be wanting would be frisket film, and that's because, you know, as Justin was saying, you can see through this stuff kind of okay, especially when you have darker surfaces. But with frisket film, the stuff's like almost clear. It's kind of got a matte finish, but you can see straight through it, no problems. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do these panels in white, and then I might tint it with a little tiny bit of this like sky blue, just to make it, I kind of want this one to look like it was trying real hard to be clean, and then when we rough it up, you know, it'll be an interesting juxtaposition.
Okay.
Just barely off-white in the blue range is all I'm going for here. Actually, you know what? Do I want to do that, or do I want to go more for like a beige color? Because black, white, and beige, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the colors we rock most of the time. So maybe that's a cool one. I don't know.
I think if you do that hint of blue, it's going to match the terrain pretty well. Down to the beige.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
You know, this one particular door
like,
will look
you
like
know,
it was designed to match.
Blue and stuff on a couple of the pieces that we've already been working on. So okay, well let's just go back to the white styrene res. That's got pretty good coverage, and we'll try to cover up all of our red over here. All right. And nice and thin. You don't need to cover it all up in one go here. Okay. And just blowing some air on it now. Now we're going again. Doing layers nice and slow too also tends to help you avoid filling in the details on MDF. Like you can still see these lines nice and crisp on here. And if you start really blowing a ton of paint in there, then it's really easy just for that stuff to start rolling into the cracks and crevices. Got my wash bucket over here. Normally when I'm out in the workshop area, when it's better weather and or the machines aren't running deafeningly loud, I like painting out there because I can just dump paint water all on the concrete out there and nobody cares. It's easy to just pressure wash later.
That's what I imagine Bob Ross's floor looks like when he was cleaning out his paintbrushes. It's like beat the devil out of it and then paint goes everywhere.
All right, so let's see. We want to keep this from being too much. Like I think that's probably about the level that we want there. Like just enough to tell something's up, but without, you feel me? Does that seem?
It does seem a little subtle.
Well, I'm not trying to make it like crazy blue or anything. I want it off-white.
Like that much better.
Okay,
that
fair
was
enough.
Enough to actually get the blue in there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's peel this up carefully and see where we are. Okay. That's looking pretty good.
You know, it's probably not intentional, but I'm getting a real like Tau vibe from this.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Yeah, one of the poster things, because they have the white and the red, and then one of the ways
It's
that
true.
it's true. Shadows on whites was blue.
Yeah.
That would look real good on some Tau terrain though. That's a pretty good color scheme.
Okay, so I guess we better make sure the white is dry before we do any more masking, because we're going to need to probably do some taping before we can actually put the circle in the middle with our lettering or our numbering. This is probably a thing you should cut out. There is a lot of hair drying. This is a terrible song. I don't know any good songs.
Can't cut it out now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's gotta be in.
All right.
So what do you think is stencil-wise? What's your plan here?
So I've got this pile of stencils from the Mecha stencil line, and is that the 3 size? Okay, that's 2 of the 3 size. So I'm thinking if we do something like this, where we've got our ring in the middle, then we can just put the number in on top of it. Where's our 7?
So in hindsight, we might have should have done this before we maxed off the red.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I think we're still okay. We're in an okay spot. Where did my other thing of numbers go? I've got those. Oh, I set them over here. So like there and there.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we could also throw that guy up there, and then put that in the middle, and then put that on top.
Yeah.
I think that looks pretty good.
When you had the circle up and then the 7, I had like a pool table kind of vibe going.
Oh.
Yeah, so like you could do that, or you could do some circles and then do the 8, and this is like an 8 ball. And we don't know what it means, but very close.
I think I kind of like this one, like the idea that you were pitching before about like a hot rod shop.
Okay.
Like I kind of like having the actual gear on there. I know it's like a literal play on the term gearhead, but you know, I think that could be kind of cool.
All right, so color-wise, what color are you thinking for the gear and the circle?
So for the gear, I think maybe we do the gear in white and then the circle in black and then the number in white.
What about splashing another color in there? Like, because you're talking about doing hot rods and red and yellow should be pretty common.
Sure. Yeah, actually, yeah, that'd be fine. You want to do like a yellow gear and then yellow, then black, then... Do we want the yellow and the red next to each other? Maybe we don't. Maybe we want to have...
I mean, they go well together. I mean, you're going to see that a lot on
That's
products
fair.
With hot rods. And
Yeah.
Thinking of
Okay.
like flaming stuff on the sides. You could do maybe the gear yellow, the circle maybe black, and it'd be a little bit more hard. But the letter, the number either white or either yellow.
So black gear. Let's do the black gear. Let's just do that. Let's go for that one. I'm just going to get a little bit of tape here so we got ourselves a little bit of a splash guard. Let's get this in position and tacked down. So I'm going to try to get this centered up between the handles, or I guess between the lines here, and then I want to get that perfectly horizontal gear tooth to actually line up on one of the rows there. I think that would be cool. Okay. So we've got it just barely tacked down at the moment. So I'm gonna gently, oh, poop, hold on. Before we let this set up, I totally didn't detack this big tape. I don't know what it is with the big tape, I just always forget. Little tape's easy.
When you're getting to this point, you're excited, you want to get the paint on, pull the mask back off and see how cool it looks. Happens to me.
Yep, all right, I'm just gonna cover myself in tape now. So we'll have a lot of pre-detacked tape. This is probably audio hell for anyone listening right now. All right.
It's not as bad as your song.
Yeah, that was pretty abrasive, wasn't it? Okay, so let's try to get this guy back down again. Try to get it centered up. And get that centered up. There, okay, all right. We're good now. All right. What? No, I have plenty of tape. No, you go over there. All right. That, and we don't have to be super precise here because the stuff on the outside we're gonna have to put a different color down on anyway after we mask the whole door when that's done. Okay, so one thing that we wanna be careful of is underspraying right now, and because even though we've got this more or less tacked down on all sides, you can see a little bit of play with it, the edge of the stencil flapping up a little bit. So I'm gonna be real careful and keep a finger kind of around these edges as we're going and make sure that we don't have any unfortunate accidents. Okay. So I'm using FW ink because it is incredible. Actually, I'm gonna dump the rest out of this brush. And then I'm gonna use the FW black. All right, don't need too much of that. If you've watched any of our videos anytime recently, I talk about FW black all the time. It is super, 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 super strong. All right, so I think these two areas are kind of our worst offenders. I'm gonna see if I can just find something that I can use to hold this down with a little bit easier, because this door, the way that it's sitting, is a little funky for this. I wonder if I can just sort of scooch this pencil in here and hold that down. Maybe that'll hold. Actually, that works really well. Okay, so let's go nice and light. I don't know what I was thinking there. I'm trying to airbrush left-handed. Okay. So we're gonna go nice and light. One of the other ways that you can try to help avoid underspraying is to keep your airbrush at relatively lower pressures and don't come in at like sharp angles.
So one of the things that gets my gears going when I'm painting is my brain is always thinking about something. So when you're airbrushing stuff or painting stuff, are you solely focused on the artistic side of it, or do you actually like envision the world that you're kind of bringing to life?
Well, you know, sometimes it's a little A and a little B. For this project in particular, we've got so much going on with kind of world building stuff that this is kind of a different beast than usual. Sometimes I'm just trying to make a cool thing. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And some of those things you'll never see. But for this one, I've been really interested in actually making a cool, cohesive sort of world that has a story. And that'll probably be reflected in some upcoming stuff that we'll be working on. Okay, so we've got our gear on here, and I did a little highlighting up top. Whew, I have a beard hair stuck in my zipper. Cool, that's neat to know. All right, You were about to ask something, Justin?
Yeah, so I don't know how much you want to reveal, but are you interested in talking a bit about your world, or maybe how you got to where you are?
That sounds a little more grandiose than I think it is, but the concept for this place that we've been talking about and working on terrain for...
Hold on. Your world is not this, but we've discussed content ideas and gaming, and more specifically what I was trying to pull out of you was like, getting to this point, and then maybe hinting at some of the stuff if you want to.
Sure.
But you had told me the other day, like, the build-up and what caused the creation of some of your other kits and how it led here. So you want to talk a little bit about how your world has led you to here?
Sure.
It's kind of grandiose.
Oh, well, yeah, but at the same time, I'm a big fan of sci-fi, and I love cyberpunk stuff. I love Blade Runner. I love Shadowrun, anything in that vein, and trying to find a way to make a set that works not just for, Infinity, which is kind of an obvious choice for this, but also trying to make it applicable for larger scale games like 40K or for Kill Team on the smaller scale. Has been a challenge. But the thing that has driven all of this is a concept that was cooked up one night late out here in the workshop after some games that we were playing, and the idea being, thinking of this far-flung place where there's all of this ancient technology from some alien race left over, and people are finding it and using it. And that's not to say that this plot, this idea, this concept is brand new, that we've invented it, because it's not. But it's always been a trope in science fiction that has fascinated me. The idea that we can take something that we didn't make, that we have no idea how it works, and try to repurpose it. And the stories that come up around those kinds of stories and the ramifications of those actions, not being fully prepared for whatever it is that you're trying to use. But from a world building perspective, it's more about how do you communicate that through architecture. And some of that is just trying to find something within the language of architecture and the language of city building that says ramshackle, but not in a negative way, if that makes any sense. Cobbled together, people doing the best that they can with what they've got, and not necessarily a limited resources type thing, but it's sometimes city building, especially on a frontier, is about efficiency. You could spend years and years and years chopping down every tree in a whole forested area nearby so that you could build this elaborate, elegant city made of all kinds of wooden buildings, or you could just make what's essentially a boomtown. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is make something where this group of people have taken what's already there, namely ruins of ancient spaceships, ancient buildings on the surface, and tried to stick their own flair on it, essentially. They wanted to retrofit it so they felt more comfortable there, but at the same time, what is it that you're actually building on top of? Is it just a normal building? Is it a nuclear reactor? Is it something crazy that you never even thought of? So trying to find a way to make a terrain base that is then... we were going to do yellow on that, weren't we? I still need to do white. Yeah. Lost my train of thought there.
So one of the things that I would like to connect or have you connect, when we discussed it, you talk about how this particular terrain line, and you talk about why you like it, what you're doing with it. But in your world, your narrative, this one, I don't want to spoil the name that's for you.
Sure.
But your previous terrain lines, Deadbolts and Warp Strider, you said you envisioned those as being entities related to this universe. So this same thing going on here.
And it's like the idea for Deadbolt was, and there were some little quotes and things in places on the site, but I don't expect anybody to really be trying to get at the backstory and the lore of our terrain up to this point. We've not been very overt about it. But I've always sort of thought about Deadbolt as some sort of gang boss or something in the Underhive, or some equally tough place where only the tenacious survive, and he's kind of running the show, very Necromunda, very Mad Max style. And then the Warp Strider, I'm always thought of as some kind of great big capital ship, or at least something big and impressive, especially for people who aren't, well cultured up around the galaxy. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest, best ship in the world, but especially for people who've never seen a giant, capital ship or anything like that, this is the biggest thing they've ever seen. So you could do things like Space Hulk style adventures, or you could make it something on the ground. I mean, the terrain itself is really flexible as to what it is exactly that you're playing on. But in my mind, I've always got an idea of what I think I want this to be. But there's no reason why you can't come up with your own story, make it your own thing. But as with anything, I think every creator is going to have some very specific ideas about what it is that they think this thing that they're making is. So hopefully all that rambling answered your question, Justin.
I think it's really good, because what's drawn me to miniatures and gaming is the narrative and the lore and the stories. And when you look at cool terrain, you're like, whatever. But when you approach a table or a product and someone could say, hey, there's kind of a story attached. Here's my 40K army. Here's why. Why I converted. This is the same way with this terrain. It is kind of your idea. It's manifest in the physical world, and I think that's interesting. And whether someone else cares to follow the lore, the fluff, or not, it's still interesting.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit of warning yellow. I'm just going to sort of tint the bottom edge of this a little tiny bit, just so we get some kind of transition here. I don't ever like using flat colors if I can avoid it. It never works out for you. Always having, even if it's just put a wash on it, that ends up creating a near infinite number of different variations of color between the base color and the wash color. So let the paint do the work for you. Okay, so we got that. Now we need to get our number on there. So, okay.
To be honest with you, this has got a very, not quite exactly, very similar. This looks like almost like space Japan kind of thing. Kind of reverse colors, but almost like the rising sun, but not.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
That is an interesting one. Yeah, we've got a little bit of a soft edge on a couple of these things, just because it's a little difficult to get stencils to lay flat inside of sort of concave areas like this where you've got the tape being pulled up from the sides. I might go back in with just a fine brush real quick and try to touch up a little bit of that. See if I can do it without completely messing the stuff up.
One of the things that I really like about painting, and in particular this particular style or design as it's developed, where you kind of go into something like this where you're trying to be creative and you have an idea where you want to go, and then throughout the process you kind of start seeing different things, or you may be like, that wasn't what I was going for, but it still looks cool. It's kind of nice having the freedom to do stuff and break away from the confines of having to follow a template, and it's really interesting seeing the different stuff.
Yeah, it's a very Bob Rossian sort of approach to art, where you're not constrained by your initial idea.
Yeah, it's very liberating, and that's what it should be. You should paint this and have fun doing it. This should not be a chore.
Right, because I mean, if doing hobby-related stuff is, you know, something you don't enjoy, then I'm not exactly sure why you're doing it. I don't know why I would do it if I didn't like it. Oh, of course I can't reach it. So let's get, actually, you know what? I've got this this gravel color from Montana. That's what I did the highlight on top of the cog with. Let's do our outline in that. I'm not necessarily gonna do like the whole thing, but there's a couple little places where I just want to knock in an edge highlight real quick. I think that might help with the definition here. I'm still kind of approaching this as though it's just a highlight. I'm only going to do kind of one side of each cog.
Yeah, and you're talking about having a soft edge, so this will help give you a more defined edge.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm aiming to do here. Okay.
Well, if anything, this building is, with these colors, is very ostentatious. They're definitely not trying to hide that they're a hot rod place.
No, no. That was kind of my question for Justin earlier, where I'm like, why would they, if they're like a hot rod gang and they're maybe wanted by the authorities, why would they have such a loud sort of facade for their their organized crime location? But you know, maybe this is just a car enthusiast club.
Or
who knows?
Maybe, you know, the law enforcement in this area is a little bit lax, or this is off a side street where crime's real bad and the cops don't really want to go there, so you got to call Judge Dredd. Got to bring in the law.
Yeah, I am the law. All right, so we've got our lucky number 7 we got to stick on here. And what did we decide before about how precisely, what color we're going to use on this guy? Did we say black? I think we said black, yeah?
I think black might look good. I think we do white. It's just lost in the yellow.
And the red, well, we could do red.
Think the same color red or different color red?
Let's just go black. It's fine.
I think it's still going to look cool.
I definitely think it'll look cool. I just am thinking, you know what?
What's about to happen?
Well, I want to make sure that we get as clean an edge on this as possible. And one thing that I'll typically recommend if you're kind of in a tough spot with a stencil is just trim it out, and then you can always add tape around the perimeter to help with adhering it down. But if you have any sort of stress in the tape or the stencil itself as it's laying down, I feel like you're more prone to have it pop up. Are we completely dry? We might not be completely dry. Okay. So let's get this all lined up here. And one of the good things about having the cog on here is that kind of gives me some crosshairs for getting it lined up. And because we have all those nice horizontal lines, that also makes sure that, that I'm getting it nice and level. Though I think we may want to kick this up. I was thinking about registering it against one of the horizontal lines, but I think we need to have it up just a little bit so that it doesn't look too strange. Okay, so there we go. Got that. And then we just need to, and I'm putting the tape as close as I can to the edge of the openings, just because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just me in my head having, you know, make-believe thoughts. But I feel like putting that tape there is like putting a strap on closer to the place that it absolutely has to be on point. Okay, so now, all right, we have covered up all of our area except for our 7. So we've got our 7 exposed in there. We can still kind of see through the tape. So But I'm pretty sure we've got it lined up in the spot that we want. And we're just going to, I'm going to take this here so we can kind of prop this guy up. I'm going to just tape it down to the table. And so we'll start with the black. We're going back to the FW ink again because it is super great. All right, just a dab will do you here. Okay, so nice and slow and low, and I'm even going to take the pencil because I really want this to be crisp. So I'm kind of pressing down on that middle part that might actually pop up if our air pressure gets a little too high. I just don't want to risk it. Okay.
You know, ironically enough, earlier in the session, you mentioned finding products that are red, white, and black.
Oh, yeah. What is that? Code Red?
Code Red Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
Red, white, and black.
Yep. I mean, even technically, our logo might as well be red, white, and black. And then Target's red, white, and black.
Yeah.
Actually, does Target have black on it? I think it's just red, white.
Yeah. Close enough.
Yeah. What else? What else?
Does Wendy's have yellow, or is it red and white?
I don't think they have any yellow because that would be like McDonald's.
I think it's red and white.
Red and white. I'm sure they've got some
KFC.
black lettering. Yeah, KFC. There we go.
We're talking about food peeps.
God, I'm really hungry now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to throw a shrimp on the Barbie.
Shrimp on the Barbie.
All right. Yeah. One of my favorite holiday acquisitions this year, and I think everybody in the shop knows it, is the new griddle that we picked up. We picked up a giant sort of 4-burner griddle for out here because we were spending like some insane amount of money every week on ordering pizzas because we were constantly here late working, and I was like, you know what? I've had enough of this. I had enough pizza. I need to cook, some chicken, make a sandwich, or eat something a little healthier, and that's when that happened. All right. Careful, careful, careful. Nice. Very clean. So, I think that's looking pretty good.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you say?
I like it. Now it's giving me kind of a vault vibe.
Yeah, it is weird, right?
And I mean, so throughout this one door, we've had several different things, like hot rod. I talked about a pool ball. Talked about rising sun. Now I'm thinking like vault. If that red in the background was blue.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Okay, so
I think that white's gonna be real striking against the background of the.
For sure. And we'll do a little bit of weathering, obviously, but we can't let something just be perfectly white. We gotta mess it up.
White shows chipping so well.
Yeah, it does. White and yellow show like brown and black and like orange chips beautifully. They're some of my favorite colors to paint just so that I can mess them up. So here we are. We got the door. What do you think about the actual frame here? I know we talked about it before, but I don't remember.
Black.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we could do a black frame and then do some highlighting with the gravel and then some dry brushing. But
so I don't mind the black.
Man, we should go red.
What were your thoughts on doing some type of metallic? Like you could just do like a black transitioning to silver, so it's like a metallic border.
Yeah. So okay.
Get your thoughts.
In one of our other pieces, I reluctantly agreed to do some metallic. The edge of actually those I was fine with, but the edge of the countertop on the sushi shop.
You want to show this?
Sure, why not? Let's throw it up here. Yeah.
All right,
This is
who's watching a little sneak peek.
Yeah. This one, God, I love this. I love this piece here. And the sign isn't glued in yet, but yeah, I did some metallic on the doors back here, and I did some metallic on that, and.
So you're saying you're reluctant?
Yeah, I reluctantly agreed to do some metallic on here. We had some of the guys out last night. We were working on this, and they were giving me some advice on color palette and everything. And I just started thinking, oh, it's just like a it looks kind of like an old diner countertop,
Yeah, it does.
which is like an old, like this feels like a weird fusion of like cyberpunk stuff. You got the neon sign up here. You got the street noodles kind of vibe thing. It's got definitely an Asian theme about it, but you also have this like weird bit of Americana sort of fused right onto the front of it. Plus, it's got, you know, speaking of fast food and things, it's got kind of a vague McDonald's-y kind of color scheme.
You got yellow and red together.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I mean, that's fair. Just because it has red and yellow doesn't make it McDonald's. I think our vault door over here doesn't look very McDonald's-y. But I thought that it definitely sold that like chrome-rimmed Formica countertop 50s diner Americana vibe.
It makes me think somebody's about to come out on their skates with your food.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I think.
Roller skate delivery for sushi.
Yeah, and you know, wasn't it in Star Wars, episode 2, when Obi-Wan is in the diner and the robot actually rolls out on one like wheel, which would be like skates for a robot?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that's what
that strikes something in my memory there. So we have our door now, and I think that we could go red. I think that we could go black, because the buildings that we're setting these onto are really light. They're like a light gray, but
what about doing a bronze or a gold border? I know we're going to still on metallic, but like hot rod.
That'd be real weird, though, I think. Like, having a whole facade of a building be, like, kind of bronzy color? I mean, I could maybe go for silver, but that's still a little crazy in and of itself. It's just that, like, almost, like, polished stainless steel kind of look.
I just imagine, like, sometimes when you go to, like, if you're going to buy, like, a Ferrari, like, the entrance to the showroom is probably real fancy and ostentatious, and I figure, like, if they got this, maybe they wouldn't care. Like, we're going to put gold trim on the door. Or silver.
Sure. You know what? Let's just do it. Let's do it. Okay, so we need to mask our door again. I believe we're all dry, so time for more tape. Just tape me up. You get some of that quiet tape. Did you know that actually exists?
I did not know that.
Yeah, Uline sells quiet packing tape.
And I feel like if the government wanted the addresses on where they shipped it, it would be going to a specific set of clientele.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, neither do the people that the tapes used on.
Oh. I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, I immediately went to like a Sopranos-y kind of vibe with
silencer tape. Yeah. Fair enough. Gotta put a silencer on it. All right. Want to make sure we get all the way in that corner there. Now, realistically, I could just put this straight across and then cut with an X-Acto knife. So I'd probably try to get that down in that corner best I can. And honestly, I'm using this pencil because it's what I have on hand and it's kind of blunted, but that doesn't mean that pencils are really great for this. In fact, they're probably kind of terrible in most situations because you might accidentally mark all over your nice terrain that you've been working on for 45 minutes. But that is what I have within arm's reach, and I'm being careful. Sometimes that doesn't count for anything, though. All right. Let's try to get that down. Okay, so we got that masked off. Nice and easy. I'm still covered in tape. All right. Let's put the cap back on there. Safety first. All right. So I guess we better black out everything again, and then maybe we do a little bit of... all right, we just put the chrome down on top of it. It'll be fine. Because then we can come back in and shade over top of it and do a little sanding and everything, and that'll probably work out just fine. That was a very squishy sounding eyedropper. Okay. I'm gonna grab onto one of these on the back here. You sound like you want to say something, Justin.
Yeah. You know me. I think you had reservations about the metallic color, but I think looking at your terrain and what you've currently got and what you're going for, this is going to be a very striking, very different facade. And
it will.
I think that's good.
And on top of that, when you're doing metallics, specifically really bright silvers on top of black, I find that taking a little bit of sandpaper at the end and hitting the edges is like cheat codes for doing edge highlighting, because you can scrape away that really thin layer of metallic paint and leave behind black edges like it's been scuffed up. Imagine some sort of you know, stainless steel fixtures, you know, back of house in like a hotel, and you've got employees rolling by with like black plastic carts and accidentally, you know, rubbing off some of that plastic every time you do it. You're gonna get grime, you're gonna get plastic stuff, you're gonna get soot and soil and junk and whatever crammed into all the little pores of everything right there at the edges especially. And you're gonna knock off the polish, you're gonna ding it up, it's gonna be less shiny. Plus it's just really easy to do and it looks good. So speaking of actually sanding, one thing, especially on metallics, because of the nature of the beast with those, if you're going to be putting a metallic down on something and you want it to be very shiny, the surface should probably be lightly sanded after you've got your coat of paint down. That just ensures that you're not going to have a texture showing that's going to create some really weird, imagine, okay, you've got a piece of glass and you mirror it, right? You're gonna be able to see your reflection in it. But then take that plastic that you put over a fluorescent light in the ceiling to diffuse it, and it's got all those little tiny lumps all over it. If you put a mirroring finish over that, you're never gonna see, like it's gonna ruin the metallic effect, and it's gonna call attention a lot to all those little bumps and imperfections. So let's grab a little piece of sandpaper. And I've got some 220 sandpaper here, but even that might be a little too strong. So what I'm gonna do is, okay, so I'm gonna sand the sandpaper. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's gonna knock some of that grit off, and it's gonna be more like a wet sandpaper now. So let's dry this off, and then we'll use the sandpaper on a few key spots. All right, I think we're good. Okay. So now the spots that you're going to want to focus on if you're going to do this sanding, I was lazy and I didn't sand off the little areas where it used to connect to the sheet. Basically like little sprue marks here. So there we go. We're all good. You can clean that stuff off before you put the primer down, but most of the time I do it in the paint process just because I usually end up sanding the edges anyway. And I like to do that after I put a coat of paint down just because it gives me kind of like a buffing compound. It tends to get smoother if you've already got paint down on it. And I think you just end up with a better overall result. So I'm not really going to sand any surfaces, but I do want to sand the edges, like the edge grain of the MDF, because those are places where you can get a little bit of unevenness and it can ruin the illusion of being polished, mirrored metal. Okay, let me just knock that over. All right, so let's throw in our outline silver from Montana. It is super, super bright, like crazy bright. We're definitely going to want to do some weathering on it afterwards. Okay, so here we go.
So this may seem very obvious to you as you airbrush a lot, but for people that are viewing, I want to talk about why you're holding this at a specific angle.
Well, some of it is so that I can get the different interior edges evenly. Some of it is just to angle it towards the camera, but I also tend to move whatever it is that I'm working on around a lot more than moving my airbrush. So I tend to keep my airbrush essentially like right in here, and I'm just keep turning the piece. And that's partly a convenience thing, and it's partly a I don't want to spill my paint thing. Did I answer your question correctly, Justin? Or did you have another thing you wanted to bring up?
I thought you might have been going for some shadows, so I actually learned something about how you paint.
Okay. That is very bright.
That is super chrome. That's like Iron Man before he got the red and yellow put on there.
Well, it's red and yellow underneath.
This is very true.
So now with that down, we've got to dial that back a little. So we're going to use what we have started referring to as the secret sauce. It's not very secretive. It's just more FW black ink thinned with a whole bunch of matte varnish. So it's like making a ghost tint, but with specifically the Minotaur line. I like the Midnight, was it Midnight Black or whatever the black ghost tint is supposed to be, but it's got too much of a blue tint to it for my taste.
The thing I'm thinking of for them is Oil Discharge.
That's what it is. Yeah. Not Midnight Blue.
It never gets used because it's like a weird dark blue, not black.
Yeah. So you know, every black paint, technically, it's just ultra saturated with something. But the FW black ink is the most complete and neutral black that I've seen. So I really like it, and we basically just thinned it down so that, like, okay, so if you can see here on the edge, I'm just sort of working my way up and feathering that upwards so that we get a nice dark sort of gunmetal steel down here, and it fades up to chrome as we're going.
If you guys haven't tried the FW inks, you should. They thin super well, and
yeah.
Like they go from being real opaque to real translucent just by thinning them. Like it's a great paint, and it's ready to go through an airbrush immediately. You don't have to do anything to it, except in this case thin it, because we're kind of going for a ghost tint versus opaque.
Yeah, the one that actually surprised the heck out of me recently was the white. Asa brought that stuff out here, and I was absolutely shocked by how well it did on some of the other pieces that we were painting. And yeah, it was really incredible. It was very, very good.
I've not got to use it yet, but I picked up a bottle of their gray for doing shadows on white. I read on a Facebook art post at one point someone suggested using FW ink gray because it's real light. You can use it to get a shadow on white and still have it look white, and it's ready to go through an airbrush real thin. So I just haven't tried it yet.
Okay, so we've got this guy here. We've got it nice and dark down near the bottom, and then we've got a few spots where we've got it mostly light. Like on top, we've left it alone, and under here where light can be, it can get around that edge and still fall into that ledge. We left that alone. But you know, sometimes with shadows on miniatures, you're not going to get the most realistic effect. You just need to make something that looks good. And as long as whatever that is looks good, you're usually just fine. Now, one of the things that helps you, I guess, make it look all right more times than not is kind of coming up with a set of rules where, especially for any particular style, it's not necessarily about what is light really going to do in this situation, but rather, you know, look at it for what it is. You're not trying to create a diorama of reality. You're trying to paint something with a particular artistic style. And, you know, whether it's surrealism or the Fauve or whatever in the past, it's like art doesn't have to mimic reality precisely. In fact, many styles don't at all, even a little bit. So treat this like that and just stick to a style. All right, so
Ready
Do
to
we?
peel this up?
Yeah, I think I am. I was thinking maybe we want to do some individual weathering on that stuff, but I think that I'd rather do it sort of holistically.
I think that's a good call, and plus I'm really excited to see how this looks.
We are going to have to go back and do those windows up top. For just a split second, I was like, I saw this tape, and I was like, what happened to the upper part? Okay,
Yeah,
rock on.
I'm not minding that at all. I like it.
Yeah. I think that I want to do something up here on this edge to give it a little bit of extra shadow right under that bar, maybe. Maybe we do, I don't know. I definitely want to embrace the chips that we've got here and maybe add a few more. I don't want to just completely wreck it, but at the same time, I want to tone it down a little bit because we got very light and then very bright up here, and we need to differentiate those just a hair.
You think about doing any brown towards the bottom? Like you did?
Yeah, sure.
I think that's going to show up really well because that brown on top of that white and that red, it's going to look real nice.
Honestly, we could probably just round that out kind of a U shape under here so that we've got a lot here and then just kind of right up the edges where you might have like water running down the edges and stuff, and that'll help separate it out a little bit. So yeah, let's go for that. Let's do it. So I've got my ghost tint brown, my old friend, and let's grab a stencil. What do we have here? Let's grab an organic. That's always good for weathering. Organic stencils, if you're not aware, are essentially like just random pattern stencils that allow you to do what looks like kind of random grungy sort of things. So let me get that around my knee. All right, so here we go. We're gonna start down here at the bottom. Okay. Get the tops of these handles here. Otherwise that's going to look really strange. This feels really thin. It's not messing anything up, but it's not...
It does look a little bit thin. Which paint were you using?
GT Brown?
Yep.
That seems a little strange. Maybe it's not shaken up enough. Yeah, that does not sound right.
Shake it up. Or,
Convulse with it.
Yes. That's like the name of a DRD song. You drop a fat album. Our first single is going to be Convulse with it.
What is it? It's like all foam in here now.
It tends to happen when you convulse.
Yeah. I think we might need a new bottle. I think something's wrong with this one.
Is there like thick, goofy stuff at the bottom?
Not that I can feel. It feels like it's like watered down. Like some teenage kid drank half of my brown ghost tint and then filled it back up with water. Thought I wouldn't notice.
Chase down Tide Pods with Minotaur ghost tint.
I got half-baked ghost tint brown all over my hands. All right, we better cut this. I gotta go find some brown. There is a 2-ounce bottle of it somewhere. Somewhere in the shop. Oh boy, that's way browner. Let's do this again with our newer bottle of ghost tint brown. We got much more of a like red brown thing going on here. Okay, let me see if I can make sure to get down in that crevice. Oh, okay, never mind. I thought I spattered for a second. I was just seeing some of the little chips from before. Okay, so that's a good start there. Yeah? What are you thinking?
I like it. I mean, it's one of those, I feel like less might be a little bit more. You might not want to go too heavy. I kind of like it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to try to do something right up here at the top, though. Just because I want a little bit more separation right there. Let me see if I can... Okay, let's turn the pressure down here a little bit more. get just barely anything coming out here. So when you're trying to get stuff into an inside corner like this, you tend to have a little bit of a trouble just because your air pressure tends to hit that corner and want to skate away, as opposed to, you know, laying right down into that tiny little crack. And I find that if I lower the pressure a little and get real close, that I have better results doing that. Okay. Okay. All right. I don't want to go too crazy here. I think we should probably hang tight on that. Okay. So what about the upper edges? So we've got our metallic down on everything, but like we talked about before, I'm thinking that maybe doing some roughing up on that just a little bit. I mean, I don't want to do a whole bunch of like crazy chipping or weathering or anything like that. We've got some already on the door, and I think that we just, you know, leverage that for basically the chips that are already there and not worry about adding any more. Let's let the ones that are already there lie, and we'll use those to our advantage, and we'll move on.
On your other door
Yeah.
that you had already done,
Yeah.
are the windows supposed to be, are those supposed to be windows at the top?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
So we can still do that.
Okay, so what kind of color are you thinking? Same thing to match, or you think?
So give me that one real quick. Let's show them what we're talking about here again. So on this guy, we've got the yellow up here, and it's supposed to kind of be like lights from inside glowing up from the bottom. And we've just got kind of a little little yellow haze there. And I think we used another one of the yellow Montana, like super bright fluorescent colors for that. So maybe we do that. We probably need to black the windows out to make that happen again. And we should probably do that ahead of, I don't know, should we do the weathering and then do the windows?
If you don't want any dabbing to potentially contaminate the window, probably.
Well, I'm not going to necessarily do any actual dabbing, but I was going to use a little bit of sandpaper here. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So because we've got, this is the sandpaper, the 220 that we refined down to be a much lower grit. If you don't want to have to do any of that extra work, get some like, I don't know, 320 or some 400 grit, and that should probably be good enough. But, so I'm going to do something right here on this edge. And I'm just going to start sort of scraping away a little bit of the paint, a little bit at a time here, until we expose a black / darker gray edge. And I think that doing that kind of weathering, it really adds something, but it also doesn't, it's not so in your face that like it's difficult to, I don't know, it doesn't get in the way. It's not really detracting from the overall piece. It gives you a little bit of interest and a little bit of definition, but you get these nice little metallic sort of things happening here where it's like chipping away. It's almost like the silver is actually some sort of coating on top of the metal, and they were trying to make it look pretty, but it's gotten banged up over time, and it's showing its true colors underneath, which is a darker, more dull metallic color. So, doing those. I think that looks way more interesting than just the flat silver, if I'm honest here. Let's get some of this here. This is part of why I wanted to maybe do this ahead of time, is just so that I don't accidentally sand part of the windows and then we end up with some funky weird stuff going on. There we go. Okay, I don't want to crazy overdo it here. But you see what I'm talking about? Like, you start to get these darker edges. And normally when you're doing edge highlighting, you want something lighter on the edges. But in this situation, for whatever reason, I think it just works. It looks good. And actually up here, where we scraped just through that, that translucent black, you kind of get these little scratches that just look like maybe they scratched off whatever grime is on top. I don't want to overdo that and ruin that effect. I'm gonna get just a little up on the corner here, but I think that's a cool little thing that you can try to do. Yeah. And also be aware of what direction you're sanding in, because you can affect how the streaks look by what direction you're sanding. You can get some really interesting different effects by doing stuff in a different pattern. You can kind of a brushed aluminum look if you're trying for that. Let's see if we can bring that down. Oh, that looks super cool right there.
Yeah, that's good. That's super cool.
All right.
We should do that on more stuff.
Yep. All right. Yeah, okay. So the reason that is doing that the way it is we have so many layers of translucent paint on top of it that don't necessarily have a lot of, they don't have a lot of opacity, but they are building up in layers. So taking this, we're scraping away not only the translucent black that we put down, but also the translucent brown from the ghost tint brown. So we're peeling that stuff away and leaving that bright, shiny silver on top. If we kept going, we'd also get some black tones where we're actually going back down to the previous layer of paint, but I think this looks good and let's leave it alone. Maybe I'll do a little more in one of the areas up here on this crossbar, just to, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, I think once you get to the windows one, it's going to be really cool. Like, when I look at terrain and models, I always envision stories and imagine what's going on. And, seeing that little, it's just a subtle, like, OSL kind of effect. But, you can imagine that that's the lights in the top of this little warehouse or this, wherever these cars are stored, the garage, and then, what's inside there, the cars, the people. And you just start to kind of lose yourself in a story. It's not just a facade anymore.
God, I love those little scratches on the side. I think they're so cool. Okay. Actually, I kind of wonder, like, what would scratches look like in there? You thinking maybe don't do it, don't touch it?
I'm thinking you should do the normal weathering thing, and the reason I say that is I think the effect you've got is really cool. I think it would have been super cool if we planned ahead on the door with that, and the scrapes would go down to silver, and then, like, you can bypass dabbing, but we didn't, so you're just going to be going back into black and white.
That's fair. So I mean, what if I grab just like a more tame silver? I've got the Rune Fang steel, which is still pretty bright, but it's not quite as chrome as the outline silver here. So I've got a little on my brush here. Let's actually pick out a couple of spots right here on one of these chips that are little happy accident chips, and let's see if we can just throw in a little there. So let's pick out a couple more, or maybe it went all the way back down to the metal, maybe something up here in this little grouping, and it doesn't have to be all over the place, but let's just pick a couple of nice little spots. Yeah, I think that adds a significant amount. And if you really want to sell the effect, you can go in and do some edge highlighting on the chips too. I know you know this, Justin, because I've seen you do it before. And so I'm just grabbing that red that we used and a little bit of like an off-white. I think this is Desolated Beach. Yeah, Desolated Beach. And just gonna mix up a little bit of that to give ourselves kind of an edge highlight color. I don't want it to be like super, super whitey, but like you want to come in underneath the chip so that it's like your paint is three-dimensional. Oh, that's really hard to see. Let's add a little more of that beige. Heck, let's go for some white, because like I need this to be visible, and it's not being very visible right now.
If you want to get the depth on the chip, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like I don't want it to be pink, but I do need it to be much lighter. So I'm almost going for like a skin tone color on this, which, yeah. Okay, all right, let's go. Let's take this one here. Okay. That one's maybe a little on the heavy side. Let's try to attack this kind of horizontal thing here. Yeah. That's looking nice. And maybe, oh, that's on the white section. those are a little on the heavy-handed side there. So I keep trying to like just touch under those. In fact, I'm gonna have to come back in here under that one, try to tone that one back in a little bit. Okay, I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. Just something fun to do while we were there, but we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it. Anyway, but yeah, so I guess let's get in here and let's do something on those being the windows. Actually, let's do some really rudimentary masking here first. So I've got, I think this is like a 1/2 inch tape. Is that 1/2 inch? It looks 1/2 inch. Taking some of the tack off here. And, okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna run some tape underneath the main sill there. And then, you know what? Let's take, here scissors. We're just gonna slice this guy in half. So we got 2 sort of 1/4 inch pieces, and I know this isn't still quite, actually, let's trim it down even further. Let's try to get it as close as we can to the width of that rail, which is, I believe, 1/8 of an inch. I think that I did that so that it would kind of match the thickness on all the rest of the MDF. Okay, one more time. Okay. Okay. Drop that in place. Okay. Now, I wasn't super duper worried about getting these exactly on top of these where it's like it matches up the edge exactly. If we do that, the same effect that we were talking about before where you, it's hard to get paint down in a corner, we can actually use this to our advantage. By having an overhang just a little bit, you tend not to get a ton of it on the edge that is the side of the window pane, I guess, or not pane, the window, no, not the sill, but the vertical stiles or whatever they're called.
Window beam thing.
Yeah, the bits that separate the panes of glass. You know, on a stained glass window it would be leading, but I don't know what it is in a normal window. Anyway, so we've got that, and I think that we actually probably don't need to tape off any of this up here because I'm just gonna go this way and we're gonna try to work our way towards what is already taped off. And the reason that we're okay to do that is it's a little easier to control things that you're shooting away from. You're not gonna have something accidentally skip backwards onto an area. It tends not to happen that way. Oh wait, I've still got tons of this tape over here. Aha. No, I tore that too small. Hilarious. All right. And another one. And actually that's probably good. We're probably fine there. We're not gonna get so buck wild that we sling paint down there on the end. Okay, more FW black. Couple dabs will do us here. All right. So we still got our pressure relatively low. Let's get it a little higher than where it is now. I want a consistent, non-speckly stream. Okay, so with this oriented this way, I'm less likely to accidentally get things further down than I am to get things further out. So let's start up here on the tape, and we can work our way back down slowly until we start hitting areas that are really close to where we don't want to hit. And then we stop. It's just that easy. Put the paint where you want it and nowhere else. It's great advice, Austin. Keep it up. I know that Justin appreciates my sage wisdom.
Yes. If it only worked that way. If you want your minis done, just paint them.
Just paint them, and paint them good. Use the good paint and the good techniques with the good brush.
Don't do the dumb. Don't do a dumb thing with the dumb.
Okay, here we are. We've got, what is this? Fluorescent flash yellow from Montana. And by the way, if any of you guys are looking for these paints that we keep using from Montana, these are actually refill bottles for their acrylic paint pens that are meant for graffiti / street art / whatever you want to call it. And the colors are just amazing. This is like super highlighter yellow, and it's what I use on the other one, so we're gonna keep on rocking and rolling here. We've got it all blacked out, and I'm just gonna try to give us a little bit of a glow here.
One of the things that I've noticed in Montana is it's better to go light and work your way up. Don't just go in and like try and blast real quick with OSL, because it's not...
It's strong. Yeah. It is stronger than you would ever think it would be. It has almost no business being as opaque as fast as it is. Okay, so there we go. We got our little glow coming from below, the glow below. And let's take a peek at how that's looking. Yeah, that looks all real nice. Ta-da! Yeah, it looks pretty cool, yeah?
Yeah, it's good to me. I'm glad we went with silver.
Yeah, I think that silver looks really clutch. So, I don't know. I'm usually not a big fan of metallic paints when it comes to a lot of fine detail work, but in some situations like this, I think it really did. It did us a lot of cool favors in a lot of interesting ways. I'm gonna try to touch up or scrape up just a couple more little areas around the edge here. I wanna get some of that started. Like I noticed a little place up here where it was kind of scraped, and I kind of wanna get those more vertical. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I think this is done. I don't think there's a whole lot else I would do. Maybe some rust strips.
Yeah, I think the rust would be fine. I think one of the things that would be interesting to try with that sandpaper technique in the future is different abrasive materials to get different scratch patterns. For example, you'd have to be really careful with it, but you've used some
like a wire brush. Yeah, that could do really interesting stuff. Okay, so let me get some of the ghost tint brown. I'm just gonna sort of nab some right off the little lid here. I don't need a whole lot, and I'm just gonna come up to like one of these here, especially over here on the white area where it'll show up real nice and easy. I'm gonna get just a little extra water here. Yeah, don't want to overdo it. A lot of times when I'm doing these rust streaks, I'll come back in with my finger afterwards and try to feather that bottom edge out. Looks like it dried up on me like super fast. Let's see if we can. Okay. So, okay, maybe I needed a little bit more than just a tiny little touch. Maybe this guy up here on the side.
And one of the things that I think is worth pointing out with what's going on here is we did not do our tried and true foam dabbing, chipping technique. You just went with the whole Bob Ross kind of happy little accidents thing. We had some innate chips from the tape. We pulled it off, and instead of...
You remember that thing that we said we weren't going to have to worry about because we're good at it? Yeah, that thing.
Yeah, and we just worked those blemishes in his weathering, and no one will be the wiser except you folks who watched.
Blemish returns. All right. Oh, wiped too much of it away. Okay, there we go. That's good. I don't want to touch it anymore. I think we're fine. The only other thing that I think feels a little strange to me is these handles being the same color as this. I feel like that is an opportunity where you could do something interesting there. And I tell you what, I'm gonna grab, not the silver, but the gravel paint pen juice from Montana here that we were using for some of the little outlines on the cog earlier. And I'm going to mix that with some of this here matte varnish. And we're gonna make a little gray wash. And that stuff is just as crazy opaque as the rest of their paints, so I only just need a little bit here. The reason I'm thinking about doing a wash as opposed to actually going with an opaque paint is we've already got a lot of interesting stuff built up on it. So I don't want to kill all of that stuff that we've layered on, you know, coat after coat after coat. I just want to like tint it significantly differently and keep all of those details alive, so to speak. Because if we put a whole new fresh coat of paint on them, then you lose a lot of that, the detail that comes with all those layers of paint. Okay, yeah, I just want it a little different. Nothing too crazy. Just enough for you to be like, oh, there's handles down there. So, I don't know. What do you think? You think we're done?
I think this is one of those that it looks good, it looks done, and if you wanted to spend 20 more hours, something crazy weathering, you could, but I think for basic tabletop, get it on the table, I think we've achieved tabletop or better standard.
Yeah.
Like, these look good, these look relatively close together, and man, I love hazard stripes.
I know you do, buddy. But like,
so good.
The thing is, like, even with this, like, you can tell that they're you know, they're the same physical shapes. They're the same structure, but like this gives an entirely different sort of vibe from that. Like this is probably some sort of maintenance equipment or some kind of heavy machinery back there that they don't want anybody standing in front of that door for. Whereas with this one, you know, it could be all kinds of exciting stuff back there. I mean, it could be the hot rod shop. It could be some sort of gambling den. It could be all kinds of other fun and funky things. And you still get the same kind of lighting effects, so it feels like it's still part of the same world. It would fit together on a board, but the paint job is so completely different that you're not gonna feel like it's just a repetitious like, oh, big door, oh, big door, oh, big door, oh, big door. You know, it has a character to it. So I really like that, and I want to explore this some more. I've got 2 more to do, and we'll see how those turn out. And maybe if we just go ahead and do those, we'll pop the finished result at the end of this video, and you guys can check them all out together. Well guys, here we are the next day, and we finished up the one we were working on and another one, and wanted to show you guys what we have so far. We've got the original blue one with the hazard stripes that we showed at the very beginning, and then over here on the other side, we've got our racing stripe with the 7 one. But in the middle here, we've got a graffiti one. I wanted to test out a couple of ideas for how to do some graffiti without using water slide decals, and I think it turned out pretty well. I really wanted something that would have something to do with the set that we were working on, and since we're doing kind of a cyberpunk dystopian future type thing, I thought that the phrase that we used, riddle is a lie, is cryptic enough and also shows some pessimism about the situation. So I think that fits pretty well with the high-tech sci-fi kind of theme of this dystopian thing. And this is also the first time you guys are seeing more of what this stuff actually attaches to. So as you can see, we've basically got some large generic sort of frames here, and then we've got a whole bunch of stuff to put on top of it or attach to it to change the profile of it, to change the surfaces of it, to break it up and give you places to hide, and lots of cool stuff. And this is just a tiny sampling of what we've got designed so far, and we'll have more stuff as we go. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me. I know it was kind of a longer video format than we normally do. It went on for, what was it, like an hour and something, I think.
Hour and a half. Yeah.
So we hope that you got something out of it. Maybe you learned a couple of techniques, or at least just enjoyed seeing some of the new stuff that we're working on before it gets released. Hope you guys are amped about this new set. I am super excited, and we have tons and tons of stuff planned for it. I think we actually already have a couple of waves worth of stuff ready to go. We want to go ahead and get the stuff that's like 100% concrete ready and done out. But you'll be seeing more of this in the future if you tune in for more videos. And until next time, thanks again for hanging out, and happy wargaming.